I was the untouchable king of the city. 3 words that froze me solid. The baby is yours.
Sir. The phone buzzed on the nightstand, like a warning shot in the dead of night. Victor Kane shot upright in bed, heart slamming against his ribs before his eyes even focused. The digital clock glowed red. 2:47 a.m. No one called him at this hour, unless someone was dying or about to. He snatched the device, thumb hovering over the decline button. Unknown number. His instincts screamed trap, but some buried instinct he'd long ago tried to kill made him swipe to answer. Silence on the other end for 2 heartbeats, then her voice, soft, trembling but unmistakable. "Victor, it's Elena." The name hit like a bullet he hadn't seen coming. Elena Voss, the woman he'd spent one reckless night with 9 months ago, the night he'd let his guard down for the first time in years, the night he'd walked away from before dawn because attachments were weaknesses, and he couldn't afford any. He hadn't heard from her since, hadn't looked for her, had convinced himself it was cleaner that way. "Why are you calling me?" His voice came out rougher than intended, edged with the old defensiveness. A shaky breath. "I didn't want to, I swear I didn't. But I'm in labor, right now, and the baby, it's yours." The words didn't register at first. His mind blanked, the way it did when a deal went south and bullets started flying. Then the math crashed in 9 months, almost to the day. That night in the penthouse suite after the gala, champagne and bad decisions, her laugh cutting through his walls. "Sir," like nothing else ever had. He froze, completely. The untouchable king of the Kane Syndicate, the man who stared down rival families without flinching, sat paralyzed in the dark, with the phone pressed to his ear. "Victor?" Her voice cracked. "Say something, please." He forced air into his lungs. "Where are you?" "St. Mary's Hospital, East Wing. They're taking me in now. I thought you should know. In case something happens." The line went dead. He was already moving. Victor Kane didn't do panic. Panic was for men who hadn't learned control. But as he tore through the empty streets of the city in his black SUV, the speedometer climbing past limits that would have gotten anyone else pulled over, he felt something dangerously close to it clawing at his chest. Elena, pregnant, his child. He replayed every second of that night 9 months ago, the charity event where she'd been working security detail for some tech mogul. Ironic, considering she'd ended up in his bed. She'd been sharp, unafraid, calling him out when he tried to charm his way past her defenses. 1 drink led to 2, then to her apartment because his place felt too exposed. They'd talked until the sky lightened about nothing and everything. Her dreams of leaving the city, starting over somewhere quiet, his rare admissions about the weight of carrying a name that demanded blood, then the kiss, the rest, and the morning after when he'd slipped out while she slept, leaving only a note that said, "Sir, this can't happen again." He'd meant it. The life he led didn't allow for softness. Rivals were circling after a recent territory grab, his consigliere warning him daily about loose ends. A woman like Elena Smart, independent, normal would be a target. Better to cut it clean. But clean didn't account for this. He pulled into the hospital lot, tires screeching, ignored the valet, stormed through the sliding doors. The nurse at the desk looked up, startled by the 6'4" man in a tailored black coat radiating menace. "Elena Voss," he said. "Labor. Where is she?" The woman blinked, then typed, "Delivery room 4. Family only." He was already moving, flashing the kind of look that made people step aside. Security hesitated when they saw him. One recognized the Kane name and wisely stayed back. He found the room. Through the small window he saw her pale, sweat-slicked hair clinging to her forehead, gripping the bed rails as a contraction hit. A doctor and 2 nurses hovered, calm voices guiding her. Victor pushed the door open. Elena's eyes found him instantly, wide, shocked, then something soft relief. "You came," she whispered between breaths. He crossed the room in 3 strides, took her hand without thinking. Her fingers were cold, trembling. He squeezed. "I'm here." The doctor glanced over. "Sir, if you're the father I am." The words came out firm, no hesitation. Elena's eyes filled. Another contraction rolled through her. She cried out, gripping his hand so. "Sir." Hard he felt bones grind. Hours blurred. He stayed, held her, wiped her forehead with a cool cloth the nurse handed him. whispered things he didn't even remember, promises he'd never made before. "You're strong. You've got this. I'm not leaving." When the baby finally came a boy, tiny, red-faced, screaming, Victor felt the world tilt. The nurse placed the infant on Elena's chest. She looked up at him, tears streaming. "Look at him. He's perfect." Victor stared at the little face, dark hair like his, eyes still scrunched shut. Something cracked open inside him, something he'd buried so deep he thought it was dead. He reached out, hesitant, touched the baby's tiny fist. It curled around his finger. Elena watched him. "I named him Luca, after my grandfather. But if you want Luca Kane," he said quietly. "It fits." She smiled through exhaustion. "Yeah, it does." But even in that moment, Victor knew nothing was simple. His world was dangerous, and now it had a new weakness. He leaned down, pressed his forehead to hers. "I'm sorry I wasn't here sooner." She closed her eyes. "You're here now?" The room quieted as the nurses stepped back to give them space. Luca's cries softened into tiny hiccups against Elena's skin. Victor couldn't look away from the two of them, his son, his... What? The word family felt foreign, dangerous, like a target painted on his back. Yet he couldn't leave. Elena's breathing evened out, exhaustion pulling her under. Victor stayed seated beside the bed, one hand still loosely holding hers, the other resting protectively near Luca. He watched the monitors beep steadily, listened to the soft rhythm of their breathing, and for the first time in years felt something close to peace. But peace in his line of work never lasted. His phone vibrated silently in his pocket once, twice. He ignored it. Whatever it was could wait. Tonight, for once, the city and its shadows could turn without him. When Elena stirred again, her eyes found his immediately. "You're still here," she murmured, voice hoarse. "Where else would I be?" She gave a small, tired laugh. "I thought maybe you'd disappear again, like last time." The words stung more than he expected. "I won't, promise?" He hesitated only a second. "I promise." She searched his face, then nodded slowly. "Okay." A nurse came in to check vitals. "Mom and baby are doing great. We'll move you to a recovery room soon. Dad, you can stay as long as you like." "Dad." The word landed heavy. Victor swallowed. "Thank you." When they were alone again, Elena looked at him with quiet intensity. "What happens now, Victor?" "Really?" He exhaled slowly. "Now, we figure it out. Together. But first, you rest. Both of you." She closed her eyes again, a faint smile on her lips. "Together," she echoed softly. Victor leaned back in the chair, watching them sleep. The city lights flickered through the blinds, casting long shadows across the room. He knew the storm was coming. His enemies wouldn't stay quiet, forever, and news like this traveled fast in his world. But for tonight, he let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, he could protect this fragile new thing he'd never asked for, but suddenly couldn't imagine losing. The first days blurred into a strange, fragile rhythm that Victor never imagined for himself. Hospital discharge came faster than expected. Elena was strong, the doctors said, and Luca was healthy, gaining weight like he was making up for lost time. Victor handled the paperwork with quiet efficiency, signing where needed, flashing that calm authority that made nurses move quicker and forms appear already approved. Elena watched him from the wheelchair, Luca cradled in her arms, bundled in a soft blue blanket one of the nurses had gifted. "You don't have to do all this," she said softly, as they waited for the elevator. He crouched in front of her so their eyes were level. "I want to." She searched his face. "And after today, what then?" He straightened. "You're not going back to your old place." "Not right now." Her brow furrowed. "Victor, my building. Top floor. It's secure. There's a guest suite already prepared. Crib, changing table, everything Luca needs. You both stay there until we figure things out." She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it when she saw the look in his eyes. Not the cold command he used in boardrooms or back alleys, but something quieter, more vulnerable. "I'm not trying to trap you," he added, "but I can't let you walk out of here, sir. Alone. Not with him. Not with him. Not with everything." Elena glanced down at Luca, who was making tiny sucking motions in his sleep. She exhaled. "Okay, but this is temporary, and we talk. No disappearing, no decisions without me. Deal." The drive to his building was quiet, except for Lucas' occasional soft grunts. Victor kept one hand on the wheel, the other resting near Elena's on the center console, not touching, but close enough that she could feel the warmth. When they pulled into the private garage, two of his men waited discreetly by the elevator. They nodded once, eyes scanning the surroundings out of habit. Elena noticed. Security? Standard, he said, a half-truth. He'd doubled the detail the moment he left the hospital. The penthouse doors opened to polished marble, floor-to-ceiling windows, and the kind of silence money buys. But someone had softened it. Fresh flowers on the console table, a stack of baby books on the coffee table, a basket of blankets folded neatly beside the couch. Elena stopped in the foyer. You really did this. My assistant handled most of it. He shrugged, almost embarrassed. I told her what you might need. She walked slowly through the space, Luca still asleep against her shoulder. The guest suite was at the end of the hall, spacious, with a king bed, blackout curtains, and a nursery corner that looked like it belonged in a magazine. White crib with soft gray linens, a rocking chair facing the city view, a changing station stocked with everything, sir, imaginable. Eleanor ran her fingers along the crib rail. It's beautiful! Victor lingered in the doorway. If anything's wrong, tell me. We can change it. She turned to him, eyes shining. It's perfect. Thank you. That first night was long. Luca woke every 2 hours hungry, wet, or just needing to be held. Elena moved like someone who'd already learned exhaustion by heart. Victor stayed awake too, hovering in the hallway, listening. When she finally slumped against the headboard after a 4 a.m. feeding, eyes heavy, he stepped in. Give him here, he said quietly. She hesitated. I've got him. Go lie down properly. Elena passed Luca over carefully. The baby fussed for a second, then settled against Victor's chest, as if he recognized the heartbeat. Victor walked slow circles around the room, one big hand cradling the tiny head, the other supporting his back. He murmured low things, nothing poetic, just steady nonsense about the lights outside, about how the city never really sleeps. Elena watched from the bed, propped on pillows. You're good with him. He's easy to like, Victor said, not looking up. She smiled faintly. You're not what I expected. He glanced at her then. What did you expect? I don't know. Someone colder, someone who'd run. He looked back at Luca. I almost did. That morning 9 months ago. I told myself it was cleaner, safer for you. And now I'm here. His voice dropped. And I'm staying. She didn't reply right away, just watched him hold her, their son like he'd been doing it forever. By the end of the first week, a routine started to form. Mornings, Elena nursing Luca while Victor made coffee black for him, with cream for her. Afternoons, naps, quiet talks on the terrace when the sun was warm enough. Evenings, Victor working from his office down the hall, door open so he could hear them. But the world outside didn't stay quiet. His phone buzzed more often, short messages from Marco, his right-hand man. Moretti's people asking questions. Shipment delayed, possible tail. We need to meet. Victor silenced them, but Elena saw the tension creep into his shoulders, the way he checked the locks twice before bed. One night, after Luca was finally down for a longer stretch, she found Victor on the terrace, staring at the skyline. A glass of whiskey sat untouched beside him. She stepped out, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. You're not sleeping, thinking, about them? She didn't need to say the name. The Moretti family had been a shadow in his life for years, old rivals, new grudges. He nodded once, words spreading. About Luca. About you. Her stomach tightened. How? Doesn't matter how. It's out. He turned to face her. I'm handling it. How? Quietly. For now. She stepped closer. And if quiet doesn't work? His eyes darkened. Then not quiet. Elena swallowed. I don't want that life touching him, or me. It already has. He reached out, brushed a strand of hair from her face, gentle, almost. Sir. Careful. But I swear to you, Elena, I will burn everything down before I let them near either of you. She searched his eyes, saw the truth there, the ruthless man who'd built an empire, and the new one who was terrified of losing what he'd only just found. She took his hand, pressed it to her cheek. Then don't do it alone. He exhaled slowly. You don't know what you're asking. I know exactly what I'm asking. Her voice was steady. I was in security before Luca. I know risk. I know how to read a room. Let me help. Let me be part of this." For a long moment he said nothing. Then he pulled her closer, rested his forehead against hers. "All right," he murmured. "But you stay behind me. Always." She nodded against him. Always. They stood like that as the city hummed below two people who'd once walked away from each other, now bound by something neither could break. Inside, Luca let out a small, sleepy sound. Victor smiled faintly against her hair. "Sounds like someone's checking on us." Elena laughed softly. "He's already bossy. Wonder where he gets it." Victor pulled back just enough to look at her, from both of us, and in that moment, with the night air cool and the future uncertain, it felt like the beginning of something real. The weeks that followed felt like walking a tightrope over a city that never slept. Elena adapted faster than Victor expected, learning the rhythms of the penthouse, the quiet security protocols, the way Victor's men moved like shadows in her background. She didn't ask too many questions at first. She focused on Luca, his first real smiles, the way his tiny fingers wrapped around hers, the soft baby scent that clung to everything now. But she wasn't blind. Victor left earlier some mornings, returned later others. Phone calls in low voices behind closed doors, the tension in his jaw when he checked the security feeds. She saw the gun holstered under his jacket more often now, not hidden, just part of the outfit. One afternoon, while Luca napped in the nursery, Elena found Victor in his office, maps and documents spread across the desk, a laptop screen glowing with grainy surveillance stills. He looked up when she knocked lightly on the open door. "Busy?" she asked. "Always." He closed the laptop halfway. "Come in." She stepped inside, arms crossed loosely. "You've been gone more. Meetings?" He leaned back in the chair. "Yeah." "With the Morettis?" He didn't flinch, just met her eyes, trying to keep things calm. "They're testing boundaries, small things. Shipments rerouted. Messages left where they know I'll see them." "Messages about us?" He nodded once. "They know I have something to lose now. That makes me predictable." Elena's stomach twisted. "So what's the plan?" "Talk first. Show strength second. If they push..." He trailed off, jaw tightening. She moved closer, perched on the edge of the desk. "You said I could help, that I'd stay behind the lines. But I'm not useless, Victor. I worked protection details for, sir, 3 years. I know how to spot a tail, how to read body language, how to disappear if I have to." He studied her for a long moment. "You really want in on this? I want to protect my son. And you." Her voice softened on the last word. "If that means understanding your world instead of pretending it doesn't exist, then yes." Victor exhaled slowly. "All right. Tonight, there's a sit-down. Neutral ground. Marco will be there, a couple others. You come with me, but you stay in the car unless I call you in." She raised an eyebrow. "You think I'd just sit there? I think you'd be safer there, and I need to know you're safe." She considered it, then nodded. "Fine. But if things go sideways, I'm not staying in the car." A faint smile tugged at his mouth, the first real one she'd seen in days. Noted. That evening, after Luca was settled with the nanny Victor had vetted personally, a retired nurse who knew discretion better than anyone, they drove across the city. Victor's black SUV blended into traffic, 2 more cars trailing at a distance his people. Elena wore dark jeans, a fitted black top, hair pulled back, practical, ready. She felt the weight of the small knife tucked into her boot, not for show, but habit from old jobs. The meet was at an old warehouse turned private club on the edge of the industrial district. Dim lights, low music, the kind of place where deals were made and broken without headlines. Victor parked in the back. Marco met them at the door, tall, scarred, loyal, sir. Since they were kids. He gave Elena a respectful nod. "Ma'am." She returned it. Marco. Inside, the air was thick with cigar smoke and tension. At a long table in the center sat Carlo Moretti, mid-50s, silver hair, expensive suit, eyes like chipped ice. 2 of his men flanked him. No weapons visible. Rules of neutral ground. Victor walked in like he owned the place. Elena stayed a step behind and to the side, scanning the room out of instinct. Carlo smiled thinly. "Kane, didn't expect you to bring company." "She's with me," Victor said flatly. "Let's keep this simple." They sat. Eleanor remained standing, back to the wall, eyes moving between faces. She caught the way Carlo's gaze flicked to her, then back to Victor calculating. You've been busy, Carlo started. New air, new priorities. Congratulations. Victor's expression didn't change. Get to it. Carlo leaned forward. You took the East Docks. We want them back. Fair split, or we make things uncomfortable. Victor's voice stayed even. The docks are mine. You want a peace. You negotiate, not threaten. Carlo chuckled. Threaten? I'm just pointing out facts. A man with a family can't afford distractions. Or accidents. The word hung heavy. Elena felt her pulse kick up, but she kept her face neutral. Victor leaned in. You touch my family, Carlo, and there won't be a table left for us to sit at. You'll be looking for pieces of yourself across 3 states. Silence stretched. Carlo's smile faded, then he shrugged. Sir, we'll talk numbers later. Enjoy your new life, Kane. Hope it lasts. He stood. His men followed. As they passed, one of them younger, cocky, glanced at Elena and smirked. Pretty babysitter you got there. Elena met his eyes, cold, steady. Keep walking. The kid laughed under his breath and kept moving. When the door closed behind them, Victor exhaled. Marco stepped closer. He's bluffing. For now. Victor nodded. Watch the docks. Double the cruise. Marco left. Victor turned to Elena. You okay? She nodded. Yeah, but he's not bluffing about everything. That look he gave me he was measuring. Victor's hand found hers, squeezed once. He won't get close. Back at the penthouse, Luca was asleep. The nanny slipped out quietly. Victor locked the door behind her, checked the alarms, then found Elena in the nursery, rocking Luca even though he was already out. She looked up when Victor leaned in the doorway. Was that what it's always like? She asked quietly. Pretty much. She set Luca down carefully, tucked the blanket around him. Then she crossed to Victor, slipped her arms around his waist, rested her head against his chest. I hate this part, she whispered. The waiting, the not knowing. He wrapped his arms around her. Me too. They stood like that for a long time, listening to Luca's soft breathing. Later, in the dim light of the bedroom, Victor pulled her close under the covers. No rush, no urgency, just holding each other like they were anchoring something that could, slip away any second. I meant what I said earlier, he murmured against her hair. I love you. Both of you. More than I knew I could. Elena lifted her head, looked at him. I love you too. That's why I'm scared. He brushed his thumb across her cheek. Then we get through it. One day at a time. She kissed him slow, deep, full of everything they hadn't said yet. When they pulled apart, she rested her forehead against his. Together, she said. Together, he echoed. Outside, the city lights glittered like distant warnings. But inside, for the first time in a long time, Victor Kane felt like he had something worth fighting the whole world for. The dawn came too early, gray light slipping through the blinds like an uninvited guest. Victor woke to the vibration of his phone on the nightstand silent mode, but insistent. He checked the screen without moving. Marco, 3 missed calls, a text, perimeter alert, East Gate. They're here. Elena stirred beside him, sensing the shift in his body before he even spoke. What is it? Her voice was thick with sleep. He sat up, already reaching for the gun in the drawer. Trouble. Stay here. Take Luca to the safe room. Now. She didn't argue. She was up in seconds. Scooping Luca from the bassinet in the corner of their bedroom. The baby fussed softly, but she shushed him with practiced calm, wrapping him in a blanket as she moved toward the hallway. Victor pulled on a dark shirt, checked the clip in his pistol, then grabbed the spare from the nightstand and handed it to her handle first. You know how to use this? She nodded, taking it without hesitation. Better than most. Safe room code is Lucas' birthday backward. Lock it from inside. Don't open for anyone but me. She met his eyes. Come back. He cupped her face for one brief second, thumb brushing her cheek. I will. Then he was gone down the hall, past the living room toward the private elevator that doubled as an emergency exit. Elena moved fast. She entered the code on the reinforced door hidden behind a bookshelf in the hallway. It clicked open to a small, windowless room monitors showing feeds from every camera, a stocked fridge, blankets, a crib already set up in the corner. She locked the door behind her, set Luca down gently, then checked the monitors. The building's lobby feed showed 3 black SUVs pulling up outside, men in dark jackets spilling out, moving with purpose. One carried a duffel bag that looked too heavy for just clothes. Moretti's people. No subtlety this time. She watched Victor appear on the garage-level fight alone. No backup in sight. Her heart slammed against her ribs. He'd told her once that the best defense was being unpredictable. Right now, he looked like a man walking into a trap on purpose. On the monitor, he stepped into the underground parking structure. 2 of Moretti's men were already waiting, guns drawn but not raised. Victor stopped 10 feet away, hands loose at his sides. "Where's Carlo?" Victor's voice, sir, came through the audio feed, calm as ever. One of the men, a thick-necked guy with a scar across his cheek, smirked. "Boss sends his regards. Says you've gone soft. Wants to remind you what happens when you do." Victor tilted his head. "He wants the docs? Tell him to come get them himself." The scarred man laughed. "He figured you'd say that, so he sent us to collect something else. The kid, or the girl, dealer's choice." Elena's blood turned to ice. On screen, Victor didn't flinch. Big mistake. He moved faster than the men expected. One shot cracked through the feed. The scarred man dropped, clutching his leg. The second man raised his gun, but Victor was already on him, disarming him with a brutal twist. Knee to the gut, then a final shot to the shoulder. Non-lethal. Message, not massacre. But more footsteps echoed. 4 more men coming down the ramp. Victor backed toward the elevator, firing controlled bursts, keeping them pinned without wasting ammo. He hit the call button. The doors opened. He stepped in just as bullets sparked off the metal. The feed cut to static for a second. Elena's hands shook on the gun she held. Luca started to cry, soft at first, then building. She rocked him instinctively, whispering, "It's okay, baby. Daddy's coming back." Minutes dragged, then the elevator dinged on their floor. She aimed the gun at the door, finger off the trigger but ready. The lock clicked. Victor's voice came through the intercom beside the door. "Elena, it's me. Open." She, sir, exhaled, lowered the weapon, and unlocked it. He stepped inside, shirt torn, blood on his sleeve, but his own. A shallow graze across his upper arm. He looked at her, then at Luca, relief flooding his face. "They're gone," he said. "For now. Marco's people are cleaning up downstairs." Elena set the gun down, crossed the room, and wrapped her arms around him, careful of the wound. He held her tight, one hand in her hair, the other cradling Luca between them. "You're hurt," she whispered. "It's nothing." She pulled back, inspected the graze. "It's bleeding." He let her lead him to the small sink in the corner, where she cleaned it with the first aid kit stored there. He watched her face, the whole time tense, focused, beautiful, even when terrified. When she finished bandaging it, he caught her wrist gently. "You didn't hesitate. I told you I could handle it." He pulled her close again. "I know. I hate that you had to." Luca quieted against Victor's chest, tiny fist clutching his shirt. Victor looked down at him, then back at Elena. "This ends today. I'm done letting them dictate terms. What are you going to do?" "Meet Carlo. One last time. No neutral ground. His turf, his rules. But my terms, that's suicide." "No." His voice hardened. "It's the only way to make him back off for good. I go alone. You and Luca stay here. Marco's bringing more men. The building's locked down." She shook her head. "I'm not letting you walk in there without backup. I have to. If I bring, sir, an army, it's war. If I go alone, it's personal. He respects personal." Elena searched his eyes, saw the resolve there, the same look he'd had the night Luca was born. The night he chose them over everything else. She nodded slowly. "Then come back to us." He kissed her hard, desperate, full of everything he couldn't say. Then he kissed Luca's forehead. "I love you," he said against her skin. "Both of you, more than the empire, more than the name. If something happens, don't." She pressed a finger to his lips. "Just come home." He nodded, stepped back, looked at them one last time, like memorizing every detail. Then he walked out. Elena sank to the floor of the safe room, Luca in her arms, and waited. Hours passed. She watched the feeds, Marco's team reinforcing every entrance. No movement from outside. No word from Victor. Then, late afternoon, the elevator dinged again. She stood, gun in hand, once more. The door opened. Victor stepped in, bruised, lips split, but walking. Behind him, Two of his men carried a bound and gagged Carlo Moretti between them. Carlo's eyes were wide shock, fear, defeat. Victor looked at Elena. "It's over." She lowered the gun. "What did you do?" "Talked." Victor's voice was rough. "Showed him proof I have recordings of every dirty deal he's made in the last 5 years. Told him if he comes near us again, those go to every federal agency, every rival family, every news outlet. He walks away. We walk away. Truce." Carlo glared through the gag, but said, "Sir, nothing." Victor nodded to his men. "Take him home. Make sure he delivers the message." They dragged Carlo out. When the door closed, Victor crossed to Elena and Luca. He dropped to his knees in front of them, exhaustion hitting all at once. Elena pulled him into her arms. "You're safe." He buried his face against her shoulder. "We're safe." Luca reached out, patted Victor's cheek with a tiny hand. Victor laughed soft, broken, relieved. "Yeah, kid, we're safe." The city looked different in the soft glow of late afternoon 6 months later. The skyline that once felt like a cage of steel and secrets now seemed almost peaceful from the penthouse terrace. Victor stood at the railing, Luca balanced on his hip, pointing at a flock of birds cutting across the horizon. The boy babbled excitedly, tiny hand reaching toward the sky as if he could catch one. Elena watched them from the doorway, a quiet smile on her lips. She'd finished her online classes an hour ago, criminal justice degree, almost complete. Not because she planned to go back into security, but because she wanted options, choices. A life that wasn't dictated by anyone else's rules. Luca spotted her and stretched both arms out, making grabby hands. "Mama." Victor turned, his face softening the way it always did when he saw her. He crossed the terrace in long strides and handed Luca over. The baby immediately buried his face in her neck, content. "You two having adventures without me?" she teased. "Always," Victor said. "His, sir." Voice was lighter these days, less guarded, less haunted. "He's decided the birds need names. We're up to flap number 7. Elena laughed, pressing a kiss to Luca's dark curls. "Ambitious." Victor stepped closer, slipping an arm around her waist. They stood like that for a while, 3 of them against the railing, watching the sun dip lower. The building's security had been scaled back, the Moretti truce held. Carlo had kept his word, recordings or not. He'd lost too much face to risk another move. Victor had handed off most day-to-day operations to Marco and a handful of trusted men. He still oversaw the big decisions, but the nights were quieter. The phone rang less. Sleep came easier. Inside, the penthouse had changed too. Toys scattered across the living room floor, framed photos on the shelves, Luca's first smile, their first family walk in the park, a candid of Victor asleep on the couch with Luca curled on his chest. It looked lived in, loved. Elena set Luca down. He toddled toward his favorite stacking blocks, plopping onto the rug with focused determination. She turned to Victor. "You've been quiet today." He rubbed the back of his neck, a rare tell. "Thinking about?" He took her hand, led her a few steps away from Luca so the boy wouldn't overhear. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Elena's breath caught. Victor didn't drop to one knee, not dramatically. He just opened the box, revealing a simple platinum band with a single clear diamond that caught the fading light like a promise. "I'm not good at speeches," he said, voice low and rough. "Never have been. But I've spent every day since that 2:47 a.m. call trying to prove I'm worth keeping around. You gave me a chance I didn't deserve. You gave me him. You gave me a reason to want something more than power and survival." He looked at Luca playing happily, then back at her. "I want forever, Elena. Not just the good days. All of them. The hard ones too. Marry me. Let me spend the rest of my life showing you and him that I'm all in." Tears blurred her vision. She stared at the ring, then at him, at the man who'd once walked away in the dark, who'd come back when it mattered most, who'd fought for them when everything said he should run. "Yes," she whispered. His shoulders dropped with visible relief. He slid the ring onto her finger-perfect fit. Then he pulled her close and kissed her slow, deep, full of everything they'd survived to reach this moment. Luca looked up from his blocks, clapped his chubby hands, and giggled like he understood exactly what was happening. They broke apart laughing. Victor scooped Luca up, holding him between them. "Looks like the boss approves," Victor said. Eleanor rested her forehead against his. He's got good taste. Later that evening, after Luca was bathed, fed, and tucked into his crib with his favorite stuffed bear, they sat on the couch, her legs across his lap, his arm around her shoulders. The city lights twinkled, below like scattered stars. Victor traced the new ring on her finger. We can do it quiet. Just us, Luca, Marco, maybe a few others. Somewhere small. No press, no spectacle. Dor, we could do it big, she said softly. Not flashy, just real. Friends. Family we've chosen. A reminder that we built this from nothing. He smiled, a real, unguarded one. Whatever you want. She leaned her head on his shoulder. I just want us. They stayed like that until the sky turned fully dark. No more shadows lurking. No more waiting for the next call. Just the quiet certainty that whatever came next, they'd face it side by side. Victor pressed a kiss to her temple. Thank you, he murmured, for calling me that night, for not giving up on me. She turned her face to his. Thank you for answering. And in the stillness of their home, with their son sleeping safely down the hall, and the future wide open in front of them, it felt like the beginning of something unbreakable. If you love this story of second chances, danger, unexpected love, and finally finding home, drop a like. Leave a comment telling me your favorite moment. Was it the 2:47 a.m. call, the hospital scene, the proposal? And subscribe for more intense, heartfelt Mafia tales with real emotion and happy endings. See you in the next one.